town style.
I guess so.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like Bill, what's his name? Barack Obama does those.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to greet you here. This is the Rear News Media Center, and today we have a press conference of two members of Metallica, Lars Ulrich and Robert Trujillo. And the press conference is devoted to the Moscow premiere of Metallica Through the Never. The moderator of the event is Sophie Petrova, the PR director of the company. Hello. Right, I think we can start. Please raise your hands and do not forget to introduce yourselves. Yes, the gentleman here with glasses, the first row, front row, on the right. Yes, right here. Russian newspaper, Andrei Vasyanin, my name is. In the movie, there's this episode when around you the equipment becomes exploding. Anything like that ever happened in reality? And what do you normally do when things start exploding around you when you're...
We run fast. That kind of stuff happens quite often. During this production, we were prepping for all this. At one point, we had a fire up in the lighting trust. Another point, we had a camera that came loose on a zip line. So the production for this was actually very dangerous. And we're lucky to be here with you right now to celebrate that danger.
And you also have to remember that in the movie, obviously the movie, all the gadgets in the movie pay homage to things that we've done in the past. So the particular stage destruction is a nod to the stage setup from the 1996-1997 tour. So with the stage destruction was the primary gadget on the Load Reload tour back in the mid-90s.
Anton Voronin, O2 channel, please tell us. Very recently, you're back from tour, right? And you've been singing, and now you're here in Moscow presenting your movie. So a logical question is, are we to expect you with a ballet next year? Ballet?
It's actually 2 years. The ballet was not available next year, but 2 years from now, yeah. We're working on it. You know, we're trying to do as many different things as we can. So, Russian ballet, the check, 2 years from now.
And singing, when are you going to sing?
No, that's just a part of what we do. It's not all of what we do. But we did have a great run out in, we played in some new countries that we haven't been to for a while, out in Malaysia and Indonesia and Singapore. Went to China for the first time, and now we've got to do this movie for about 3 months, and then we're going to go make a record again. And then it's time for the Russian ballet.
Colleagues, more questions, please. More questions. And more questions, please. Ksenia Yeremina, please tell us, what was in the bag? Are you going to tell us ever what's in the bag in the movie?
Okay, the question was, what is in the bag? You tell us what's in the bag. It's your own interpretation. You know.
It can be a lot of variants.
Yeah, we've had some great answers to that from our fans, and I think that's the best way to go about this.
I prefer to learn it from you.
Well, you know, we had some people say, "Is your new album in the bag?" You know, new songs is that what's in the bag?
Maybe.
I mean,
I can. If you ask me the question, I can tell you I've never looked in the bag, so I don't know what's in there. The only person that I know who's looked in the bag is the actor Dane DeHaan, and I've never asked him. He may very well take that to his grave, actually. But maybe one day I'll ask him, but I haven't, so I can't tell you. But like Rob says, we've heard everywhere we go, everybody's got a smart answer. Somebody the other day said that Cliff Burton's soul was in the bag, which I thought was particularly moving. But who knows? I don't know. But if I find out, I'll let you know.
But Actually, the hero of the film was shocked when he saw in the back. The hero of the film was shocked when he saw in the back. Why?
I know. Well, I don't know. It doesn't say in the script what's in the bag. But I think there may be certain movies, say Pulp Fiction, we never quite know what's in the suitcase. So it may be loosely inspired by some of these different things. Who knows? He certainly has a pretty physical reaction when he opens the bag. And I think it's acting at its highest level. But maybe one day I'll get around to asking him. If I do, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Of course.
More questions. I have a question. So you're running the film together with a film about One Direction because do you think there will be a lot of competition? Another question is, is it different when you're on stage or when you work for the camera? Are these two, very distinctly different feelings on stage and for the camera?
I don't think that we have too much competition with the One Direction movie. I think we have different audiences. And even though I know the filmmaker from the One Direction, Morgan Spurlock, who's actually a friend of mine, it's obviously different audiences, different kind of movie. I think the One Direction film is much more obviously a documentary or even like an infomercial. That's not what we were interested in doing with our film. We wanted to do something completely different. I haven't seen their film, but a lot of other artists, Justin Bieber and Katy Perry and so on, have done movies that are more sort of documentary, a lot of being on tour and following the show and getting in and out of airplanes and cars and stuff. And I think that's fine. It just wasn't for us. We've done so much of that kind of documentary style stuff in the past. So that was not what we were interested in to do this time. As far as the second question, as you can see, there are a lot of people always photographing us. So, when you're up on stage, you're pretty much photographed all the time. There's 10,000 iPhones taking pictures of you. Just listen to that. Listen. Shh. It's like a song.
I was just going to
It's
say
like
that.
music. So obviously the cameras for this movie were big 3D cameras, and it's quite a production. And obviously we're aware of the camera's presence, but I can't say that it's, it just makes you kind of step up. It's in English they have this word, it's like game time. Put your game face on. You get up on stage. There's 20,000 people there sharing the experience with you, and it sort of lifts you, and the cameras, I think, just enhance the experience. But these days, when we're working at the studio or when we're here or whatever, there's always cameras that are recording everything for websites and for DVD extras and all this stuff. So it's sort of, without sounding blasé about it, you sort of get used to it,
Colleagues, more questions, please. Hello, Veronica Skorichina, Mirror TV channel. The main character is a messenger on an errand. Do you actually know how roadies work for you who run on similar errands, or did you have to meet them for the first time just for this movie?
Well, for starters, our wonderfully crazy Hungarian director Nimrod Antal came up with the narrative and the story, which involves Trip. Trip would be the I don't know if you'd call him a production assistant or a runner, who goes off on this errand that takes him into no man's land, and yes, we have. Let me just say this: our road crew and our runners, when we do have them, they're the best in the world. So Trip is a representation of that. The energy, that is Metallica. You know, there's this commitment that comes from our crew, and we love them, and none of this would be possible without them. So to me, Trip is an extension of that. Unfortunately, he set out on this journey, and he encounters some craziness out there. I don't know. You want to elaborate on that? You didn't hear it? Okay. Anyway. What was the question? She was asking if in reality
Well, it's based. I mean, it's based on the character of Trip is based on what we would call. I think my choice of words would be more runner, or an errand boy. Most roadies actually travel with the band from city to city, from country to country. He's based more on a local guy that runs errands on a daily basis, and there are lots of great people like that at Metallica concerts all over the world, and we've used them. Actually, Barbara, who was worked for me for 5 years, was a runner for Metallica. So you gotta be careful. All of a sudden you'll end up having to deal with the drummer personally.
That's right. So Trip may end up working for Lars in the future.
God help him.
Guys, I want to ask you a question. I think you know about Bobrik Sergey on musicstage.com. I want to ask you about a Newsted band, which featuring Jason Newsted. Newsted band featuring Jason Newsted. They are touring now with Dave Mustaine and playing two Metallica songs, Metal Militia and Phantom Lord. What do you think about that? Did you heard Newsted's record?
I haven't heard his record, so I haven't heard it. I heard one song that when it came out a while ago, and it sounded interesting. I think it's great that they tour together and they play Metallica songs. They spread the word of Metallica. Bring it on. It's good.
Vladimir Milovidov in Rock Magazine. In Rock Magazine, Vladimir Milovidov. My question is, what are your favorite music film about rock bands, and what films influenced you when you were working on your film? Was there anything that was new in the movie film industry in this case?
Music, pictures of the rock band.
Okay.
Well, I think this is a great question for both of us, and films that have inspired me, from the past, rock and roll movies, films that had great music. There's a great film by Pink Floyd called Live in Pompeii, which I thought was really, really dynamic and had a lot of power. And obviously, like The Last Waltz is a great film. There's another creative film called Kai Wayanoski, which was basically a series of instrumentals put to images, intense imagery, and I thought that was powerful too.
Yeah, and obviously, I think that The Wall, Pink Floyd's The Wall, is obviously when you're talking about, it's very difficult because the kind of movie that we had in mind, we had never really seen. So the easiest way to explain it was sort of like of music films that were hybrids with stories in them, a little bit like Tommy, a little bit like The Wall. You could even argue Princess Purple Rain. But obviously, these are still movies that are quite different from what we envisioned. Going down to Hollywood a couple of years ago and trying to find a director and a writer to be our creative partners in this was a pretty difficult task. Most people down in Hollywood looked at me like I'd come from another planet when I was trying to explain to them the idea of the sort of a hybrid between a concert film and a dramatic film. And Nimrod, like Rob was saying before, was the first guy that was really truly excited about this and was ready to sort of jump with us without asking where we were going to land or how we were going to land or whether there were parachutes involved or whatever. So it's been an interesting ride. but obviously there are some great films out there that, and if this, some people have already talked about that this movie may stand beside those. It may be a little too early to tell. At least I won't say that, but some of these movies just inspire you to raise the bar. I mean, I can't say that there's one particular element that has been sort of the guiding light for this film creatively. To me, it's more when you see great films that you love and that move you, it inspires you to create. It's that vague. Do you know what I mean? And for me personally, I'd say probably in the last couple of years, film has taken on probably a bigger sense of inspiration than music, because I find that there's much more interesting things happening in film and in cinema than there is in music, or at least in new music and new film. So I draw a lot of inspiration even from Metallica's music from cinema, just because I see a great film. Last week in Toronto, I saw 2 or 3 fantastic films that made me just want to step it up with Metallica. So do you understand? It's not necessarily that, great music inspires music and great film inspires film. They can also sort of inspire each other. It's just about, if you see a great painting or whatever, great architecture, great poetry, it just inspires you to want to create.
I mean, yeah, I have to say, same for me. When when I'm a part of a great song or I've written a great song, I see imagery. It's like a blank canvas, and I can't help it. I'm seeing pictures, and I have that visual in my brain. So film is very exciting. There's nothing like seeing what you've helped create come to life on the big screen. It's really, really, really great.
Russian newspaper. Did you have to use some extra skills to be part of this film, or you basically used your normal musician skills?
I mean, obviously, we've never undertaken a project of this size before. So there's so many people involved. Skills. I mean, when the concert part of the film for us was probably the most straightforward, because we had to just go up and play. And obviously there were cameras around and all kinds of crazy stuff happening around us. But I would still say that the safest place for the members of Metallica is up on stage. It's the place we know the best, and it's the place we're most comfortable. Other than just, I think increasingly the members of Metallica are much more human about being in the moment. We're not as, we don't force ourselves to be superhuman. We don't raise the bar to unexpected levels. We're not spring chickens anymore, but we're all in good health and good spirits, and I think we're probably hungrier mentally and ready to step it up than we ever have been before. But I think increasingly, with this band, we just feel that we go out and do the best we can, and that's always good enough. And if it's not good enough in that moment, it'll be good enough for the next moment when we step it up to the best we can. And we're much more, I think, comfortable with that approach to music, to performing, to life, than we were 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, when Metallica was very much like a military machine that was always aiming for precision and this kind of almost unreachable level of excellence and no fault. And so I think Metallica is in a much better place than it's ever been before. And we just use the best with whatever shape our skills are in at that particular time.
If I can add to that, we all have families as well. We've got children. And when I first joined the band, I didn't have children. Now I've got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. And during the Death Magnetic cycle, when we were writing the music for Death Magnetic, we had 5 children born. some say that's probably why the album took so long to make, you know. But you start to balance things out a certain way when you have a family, and I think part of that has actually helped Metallica, helped us have fun, because we can incorporate our family into certain aspects of Metallica, and it makes it that much more exciting at this point in our lives to write music, or to make a film, or to make an album with Lou Reed, or to have our own festival, music festival. These are great challenges for us, and that we're inspired by that.
Roman Pesovsky, TV Center, TV channel. A question to Robert. How often do you wear Russian flag socks, and where did you buy them? Because they match the colors of the Russian flag. Your socks match the colors of the Russian flag. How come you wear them, and do you do that often? And where did you buy this particular socks?
Only for you guys.
А где купили? Здесь в
I'm
России?
so glad. Yes.
Where did you buy them? Here in Russia?
They were a gift from my Russian friend. His name is Demetrius in San Francisco. So I'm glad you picked up on that.
Спасибо.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
The pants are rolled up on purpose.
Yeah. I was hoping that somebody would catch that. Cool.
Hello, Pavel Potatov, Classic Rock Magazine. The question is, the fact that the film is going to be in movie theaters, do you think that it's going to attract new audience of fans rather than your usual group of fans?
We'll see. When Some Kind of Monster came out 10 years ago, there was quite a lot of people in the movie community who really embraced this film and who found something in that movie that they liked. A lot of people, or some people in the music world, thought that the movie was a little too transparent and maybe a little too revealing. I don't necessarily look at at the people at the receiving end of what Metallica does, whatever that is, or whatever project it is we're doing. I don't look at them as sort of, they're music fans, they're film fans, they're Metallica fans, they're not Metallica fans. I think that these days, it's such a varied and unpredictable audience that we have out there. If you put 50 Metallica fans in front of me, you'd get 50 completely different attitudes and outlooks on life, and 50 different ways that Metallica plays a role in their life. So I think this movie, and the feedback we've gotten from people who've seen this movie, is that this movie is quite an experience, quite a ride. It certainly is a unique film, and I would say that it would be nice or cool if there were people outside of the Metallica hardcore fan base that appreciated the movie for what it is. I've heard feedback from lots of people who are not necessarily Metallica fans who've gotten off on the film, and who sort of just appreciate, like I said, the uniqueness and that it's a different kind of a film than anything they've seen before. So, we'll have to see how it plays out, but so far the word is good.
Hello, Vladimir Yurchenko, drag metal company. Metallica has always been accused of that you're trying to earn money using whatever means, and now there's this film, and it's and the fans have yet another chance to accuse you of the same. What's your reaction to these accusations? What can you say to these people? And the second question is, there is a great cartoon about Death Clock, the best band in the world. Do you think that there is a parallel between Death Clock fans and your fans? Thank you.
Actually, Brendan Small's a great friend of mine, and but there is no parallel, I don't think. I mean, we don't really spend time thinking about that sort of thing. As far as the money issue, if anything, I think with Metallica, we take risks and we challenge ourselves and we put ourselves out there in a way where it's not about making money, it's about doing stuff for our fans so that we can, you know, again, make ourselves happy because we're so creative and we're passionate about our creativity, but also, you know, to also embrace our fan base and take them on a journey with us. You know, that's sort of the priority. Making a film like this is extremely scary. It's not like, oh, we've got all this money and we're going to make this film because we want to make more money. The chances is that we're not going to make more money off this thing, you know. And if anything, I think it's more driven towards the art of filmmaking or creativity. You know, that's really the center of it. I mean, if we can make our money back, great, you know.
I don't know who Death Clock is.
He doesn't even know who Death Clock is. I do because I love cartoons, I love animation. Yeah, yeah.
Здравствуйте.
Hello, Serdyuk Evgeny, Metal Nation. Are you? Tell us a secret. The new album. What stage is it at, and when are we going to hear the new album?
As long as the secret stays in this room. Well, we have to hear ourselves talk about this movie for the next 2 or 3 months, and then when we're done with that, we'll get back to thinking about the next record. 2014 will be probably mostly about the new record, but I think we're also. It's like, who are we kidding? I think we sort of figured out that there's always something that will come up. Somebody will come and say that they've offered us a gig on the moon or something, and then we're gonna go and do that, or some experience. You know, we're always up for anything, but you know, we want to definitely get back to making a record, and I think we feel quite invigorated after spending a couple years in the movie world. Now I think we're pretty psyched to make another Metallica record. So. We'll work on it next year, and it'll probably come your way in 2015 would be my best guess.
Hello guys. Artem Mikhalkov, Palmyra Channel. My question is to Lars, I think. The basis of the movie is the narrative. Maybe it's based on your life in the period when you were, you know, hanging out with Diamond Head. Would you comment on this for me? 81, 82.
That's I think that's a fine suggestion. Doing interviews about this movie for the better part of the last month, I've heard a lot of different suggestions about what the movie means. Obviously, since it's Metallica, we're sort of aiming for ambiguity and I guess in some way kind of you know, that we encourage the movie-going audience to sort of get out of the film whatever they would like to get out of the film. I'm not going to sit and carve out in stone what this film is supposed to mean or what it's supposed to represent, but I do think that there's a parallel between 30 years of talking about, you know, Metallica, or being asked about Metallica messages and what do the lyrics represent and all this type of stuff. If there's one common thread through all of this for 3 decades, is that we encourage people to sort of figure it out for themselves. Great film, great painting, great literature, great poetry, great music. I'm not putting Metallica in that bracket, but I do feel that it's always more exciting, at least for me as a fan of great art, when I have the opportunity to kind of mold it to what I think it should be, and to figure it out for myself, and to kind of paint my own landscapes, and you know. So what does this film mean? If it represents young Lars following Diamond Head around in England in 1980 to you, then I'm not going to say it doesn't. I don't know if Nimrod Antal, who wrote the story of Trip, knows who Diamond Head is, but maybe he knows more about this stuff than, you know. I've never asked him, you know, when we what appealed to me and what appealed to us about his screenplay and about his ideas was, it was originally titled Chaos, and there was this whole kind of underlying chaotic, mad feel to it that we thought would be a really good companion to the concert, that the balance between the concert and this crazy world that this runner/roadie inhabits would play really well as a counterpart to the concert experience. And, to be honest with you, we've sort of sat around and scratched our heads a little bit too. Obviously, reading this in a script form was very unusual because of the lack of dialogue. I don't know if you've ever seen a movie script, but there's 120 pages of dialogue in them, and this was a 15-page script with no dialogue. So it was quite peculiar. Again, I think the beauty of his great script and the way he executed the narrative part of this film is that it's so ambiguous, and I think it's the perfect counterpart to the crazy world that takes place up on stage.
And this is going to be the last question.
International. So our first one is about.
Get it translated to Russian.
Is it working?
Можете по-русски задавать вопрос и представьтесь, пожалуйста.
I have an international newspaper. Yeah. So the first question is about who took Dane DeHaan to the film, whose idea it was to take Dan DeHaan to the film, and the second part is didn't you want to join the riots actually, who are facing the streets?
I want to join the riots.
I mean, in the film, of course, not only the concert, but.
3 years ago, I two of my kids took me to a movie in California called Chronicle, and as I was walking out of that theater, I was basically IMDbing this incredible actor with these magnetic eyes. It turned out it was Dane DeHaan, who I did recognize from a TV show called Treatment. Subsequently, he did some smaller or Lawless and some other films. And when his name came up about 14 months ago as a possible lead actor in this film, I went ballistic. I mean, there was no way he was not going to do this movie because he was perfect for the role of Trip. So we spent all our time, effort, and resources on trying to get him. And I even spoke to the last director who had worked with him, a guy named Derek Cian-France, who directed him in a movie called Place Beyond the Pines, about what we could do to get Dane into our movie. He was actually quite open to it, and was open to the also the uniqueness of the experience. And him and Nimrod met each other, and they got on like a house on fire. So it worked out well. But there was never anybody else that was talked about for that role. There was never anybody else that was considered. He was on a short list of one, and we would never take no. We would still be hunting him down on movie sets around the world right now if he wasn't in our movie. What was that again? That was Rob's question, right?
I think that's probably one of your favorite scenes in the movie, actually, the riot scene.
The riot scene's amazing, yeah. I mean, that takes place during Cyanide. We purposely, Metallica purposely stayed away from the filming of the narrative. I think that being around Rick Rubin for the Death Magnetic experience kind of taught me that sometimes it's better to take a little bit of distance from the day-to-day grind of the creative process. You get better perspective if you're not involved in every single minute detail. I could already tell when we were filming some of the band's parts in Vancouver that I was starting to get too involved in it. And Nimrod would sit there and go, take 5 was fantastic when you were walking down the hallway, and I was pretty sure that take 4 was much better. And so I could tell that it would probably be better for my role in the post-production if I was not involved in the day-to-day of the shooting of the narrative. And so I did not partake in any riots I was driving kids to school in San Francisco.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much. That was the very last question. Thank you so much. Okay, this will be it. A round of applause.
Thank you.
I guess that's the end.